Guten Abend, everyone. So today I will just be explaining the number and nine. And actually no, screw nine. I'm just gonna be explaining number 10. Right now I'm gonna be explaining number 10 for the the test, the math test. So this is how you do number 10 essay word problem on the other test after the old one. This is the LETV one. So first of all, we know that a number of scouts form a rank, right? Long story short, if you are too dumb to know what a rank is, basically what they're trying to say here is it's a line. So it's basically made up of rows and columns of people. If you've joined scout activities before, you would probably know. So anyway, we know that the number of scouts for a brand, blah blah blah, not really important. Each row contains the same number of scouts. This is important to know because this is how we know that we can use the variables x and y. Now, if the number of we have to know that right now, as of now, as we are speaking, each row, which if you have forgotten is the horizontal line, contains the same number of scouts. Column is the vertical one. Now, if the number of scouts in each row is increased by 1, then the number of rows would obviously be decreased by 2. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here, because obviously when you form an assembly line and you increase the amount of people in each row, then the very last row is either going to have less people or completely vanish. Alright, so now that we know that, we have a second rule here where if the number of scouts in each row is decreased by 1, then obviously the number of rows will increase because each row now has less people to fill it in to consider it one row. And the rule stated here is if the number of scouts in each row is decreased by 1, then the number of rows will be increased by 3. Now, the question is, how many rows exactly are there as we are speaking, and how many scouts are in each of those rows? Now I'm going to explain how on earth we write this into a formula. So obviously, first things first, we will name the number of, what was it again? Yes, number of scouts in each row as x. And the number of rows as y. So now we put it like this. I'll just put in the thing, I'll explain it later. So obviously here we have x, right? If the number of scouts, x, is plus 1, then the y, the number of rows, would be decreased by, how many was it? Yep, 2. And right below it, we're just gonna put the same thing for the other rule. X minus 1 and y plus, y plus 3, am I right? Alright. So now that we've put it like this, now there was another way I was originally going to show you, but I can't really explain it. Now this is the reason why I put it in a really weird multiplication shape like this. So basically, if we just use our brains here and common knowledge and basic logic, we would know that if there is a row and we have a column, basically kind of like a rectangle or a square, length times width as row times column, then we would get the area, or in this case, the total amount of scouts. Do you understand what I mean? Let me explain. So obviously this would be length time, just basically like this. A rectangle, which represents the assembly line here, or sorry, a rank, and the length and the width are represented by the column and the rows. So with the row, so obviously this number, because we know how many rows there are. Actually, completely forgot what I had said earlier about rectangles. Screw that. So as I was saying, so we know there's a bunch of rows, right? And in each of those rows, there are a certain amount of scouts. Just by using common logic, we can tell that the total amount of scouts is x times y. Let me just write that down real quick. Perfect. So it's xy. I really do hope anybody watching this understands how the logic behind this, because I really do not want to have to explain it. But I'll just explain it anyway. So basically, obviously, if we have a row with a certain amount of people in it, and there are scouts in those rows, then all we have to do is multiply it, right? Exactly. So with that being said, we put it like this. If the number of scouts in each row is added by 1, increased by 1, the number of rows is decreased by 2. Now with this in mind, we have to think it like this, xy. Why is it like that? Because, think about it. Even if you increase the number of scouts in each row plus 1, obviously, the number of rows would decrease by 2, right? Still, that doesn't change the total amount of scouts, right? Common knowledge, guys. So yes, it's xy, just like that. Now that we have this equation, we just do the basic algebra stuff and we multiply it. So xy, so that would be xy plus, actually no, minus 2x plus 1y, I'm not even going to write it because it's basically the same thing, minus 2 equals xy. And we do the same thing with the bottom, we multiply it. Xy plus 3x minus 1y, or just minus y in general, minus 1 times 3, 3, equals xy. So now that we have it like this, we can easily cross it out. So this is xy, we can just cross it out just like this. Kaboom. There, let me just, there we go. So now we have these equations, right? Now you might be asking, Franix, Mr. Franix, what on earth do we do with the missing xy? Well, was a special person that we lost from our hearts, then we simply have to move on, am I right, friends? However, in terms of math, we cannot just move on like that. No, you will literally get a 0 if you do that. So as I was saying, this, xy, where does it go? Well, considering we deleted it, this becomes 0. You don't, I don't think I have to explain where this comes from, right? Because it's gone. Xy is gone, so we just name it 0. So now that we put it like this, 0, and yes, before this, I have never known that you can actually do this, but equals 2, because we move this thing all the way over here, so it becomes positive. And we do the same thing for the bottom. 3x minus y equals, and we have 3, put it over the thingy, becomes positive 3. So now that we have that equation, it's the same as LETV thing all over again. We can do the same thing. Now I'll just go with the simplest method here. Let me go ahead and underline this. Yes, we just do the simplest method here, where because we already have a y and a negative y, so all we have to do is add it up, just like that. So now that becomes y plus minus y, or 1y minus 1y, right? That's 0. So minus 2x plus 3, that becomes 1x, or just x in general. Hold on. X equals 2 plus 3, which is 5. So now we know that x is 5. And now I'm just going to use the mix method here right away, because why not? Negative 2x, which is what we know is 5 now, plus, y equals 2. So, negative 10 plus y equals 2. Therefore, y equals, hold on, y equals, you put the silly little negative 10 all the way over here, and it becomes positive. So it's 2 plus 10, therefore y is 12. So now that we know this, we know exactly that the number of scouts in each row is 5, and the number of rows is y. And if we count it, it should make sense. 5 plus 1, 6. So if the number of scouts is increased by 1, 5 plus 1, so there's now 6 in each row, and there were previously 12 rows. It decreases and it becomes just 10 rows. And the same thing works for this one. That is all. Moving on to the next one, if there are any. And if there aren't, thank you for watching.